Hello, listener. Welcome to the Get Better At Network, and specifically the Get Better at Recruiting podcast. Today's podcast is our intro podcast, where you will meet the hosts, myself, Noel Wolf, and my co-host, Alex Lebelski, as we make an introduction into what is recruiting and why are we doing this podcast. Our mission, as you will hear in this podcast and upcoming ones, is to help you, if you are pursuing a career in recruiting, be it technical recruiting or elsewhere, to just get better at being a recruiter. You will find, you will learn that not a lot of people get into this industry by a straight line. There's no formal college degree for recruiting. There's not a plethora of training programs out there, despite the fact that there are millions of recruiters around the country and around the world. So we hope, and our objective is through this podcast series, to help you get better at being a great recruiter. We hope you enjoy this podcast and listen to the follow-on series and the follow-on podcasts. Let's join our show. I watched this, Gary Vaynerchuk. You know who that is?
No.
So Gary V is on YouTube. He's an inspirational guy.
Gary V. You didn't say Gary V.
Yeah. So his full name is Gary Vaynerchuk. And he says, just go do it. Like if you look at his early YouTube videos, he'll admit they're terrible. And he would make them and they would have 10 views and they would have 12 views and 15 views.
Right.
But he is where he is today. And he said his lesson to all of us is just go do it. Stop procrastinating.
Right.
It's not going to be great. It will suck, but go do it and then figure it out later. So that's what we're doing.
So did he get sued by Nike because he said, just go do it?
I don't think he actually said, just go do it. But his message is stop putzing around. I mean, look, you and I have been talking about doing this podcast since before COVID. So this is 2022, October of 2022.
Right.
So 2.5 years. And we're just now sitting down to do it. And it's a lot of, hey, we're going to plan this and we're going to do that. And we need a script and we need
plexiglass.
we need masks. And people are afraid to come in and visit with us. But let's just get started with. So Alex Lebelski is my co-host. My name's Noel Wolf. We've been in the IT recruiting business for 20 plus years. I think I've been doing it 26.
My 33rd year.
33rd year. Oh, you're aging yourself.
I know. Well, I just started my 33rd year in October.
Congrats.
Never thought I'd actually count that far back.
I'm actually on 26, I believe. Okay. I think I started in 96 or 95. I'd have to go check my LinkedIn profile, but I think I'm on 26 or 27 years.
So wait a second. You have to check your own LinkedIn profile.
Well, I might have done a little fabrication early on my career with the dates. So I got to check the dates.
To get that magical job that you kept for 6 months. Right.
A year and a half.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. As Tom Bueller used to say, I was a year and a half, 1.5 year wonder. Because after a year and a half, you'd wonder which job he was leaving to go to.
And you probably would have still been there if your replacement didn't show up.
Yeah. That particular, we're going into that. No, we're not going to get into that story. That's for a later
Not
podcast.
Today.
That's for a different podcast. But welcome to the podcast if you're listening. So what Alex and I had kicked around was, as anyone that's listening to this podcast who might be interested in getting into recruiting, and we specifically have background in technology recruiting, there is no college degree for this. There is no true formal training program for this. Most people get into recruiting because of referral, or maybe they see a job ad. That's how I got in. I got in because of my brother. And it's an interesting business because you can have a very successful career. Alex has, I have, we have plenty of friends who have had successful multi-year careers, make six figures, if not significant six-figure incomes, and build a nice quality of life for their family and themselves in an industry and a profession that no one really talks about. There are training programs out there, and I'm sure we'll talk about those maybe today, maybe in future episodes, that you can pay for, but those are usually geared towards people who have a little bit of experience. You're not going to get into advanced sourcing techniques like Trisha has, or advanced internet search like AIR's training, things like that, unless you have a year or two under your belt. So how do you get the experience? And up till now, it's been go work for mega staffing firm, multi-billion dollar, they hire you out of college with no experience and throw you to the wolves. I mean, they have good training, good playbook, but very cutthroat in what I have heard in my experience. I never worked for one of those. Lots of friends have. And we figured that there could be a better alternative to that. And why not, ride the podcast wave and have a podcast training program for people that want to be great recruiters.
Yeah. And actually with today's technology, if you're an entrepreneur, let's just say theoretically you're a mechanic and you're done wrenching it and you're like, you know what? There's a shortage of mechanics in this industry. I think I'm going to become a mechanic recruiter. So as long as you have the business knowledge and understanding what it's like to staff a shop, you can theoretically convert and become a recruiter by providing recruiting services to other big, shops, if you will, or maybe car dealerships, etc. So there is a little bit of a twist on it other than straight out of college, entry level in a way, because then you're kind of starting from zero.
Right. And that's a good point to give out to the audience is there are recruiters in every industry, every line of work. I sometimes find myself when I'm talking to folks who don't know our business or when I'm hiring an entry level recruiter or a career transition recruiter. I actually happen to have a bunch of those folks working with me at my current company who transitioned from other industries or came out of the military. I almost find myself having to justify that this isn't some multi-level marketing scheme. This isn't some, get rich quick scheme, because it sounds too good to be true that you could, sit behind a phone and a computer screen. And if you're good at this, you could make, low six figures if you're a decent recruiter and significantly more than that if you're a good recruiter. And one of the things I tell these folks to validate that this is a real job and a real profession is go on LinkedIn today and you'll find that there are recruiters in every industry. They work for every company. Pick a company. Chase Bank, Bank of America, McDonald's, Starbucks, they all have recruiters. This is a real profession that unfortunately has no real training program, has no college degree for it. And then again, regardless of company, there's also different kinds of recruiters. There are recruiters who specialize in nursing. There's recruiters who specialize in teachers. There are recruiters who specialize in, like Alex mentioned, engineering. I actually cut my teeth in engineering before I moved over to IT. Absolutely. Tradesmen.
Yep.
If there's an industry that is in need of staff, there's likely a recruiter, a recruiting company, recruiters working in that industry. How big that portion of the industry could be depends on how big the market is, right? IT is huge. Labor, light industrial labor is huge. There are, again, recruiters for lawyers. There are, you name it, there are recruiters out there. And obviously, I think, not obviously, but there are recruiters all the way up to the executive ranks. There are executive search firms who get big fees for helping a CEO land at a Fortune 100 or Fortune 500 company, because that company is likely not going to post an ad that, they're a publicly traded company. They're not posting an ad, I need a CEO.
Right.
So they're going to go engage a placement firm to go poach from one of their true competitors or a smaller competitor. If you see a big name switch from, Fortune 500 company A to Fortune 500 B, you could almost rest assured there was a recruiter involved most of the time.
Well, and let's call out the history. So back in the day, HR used to handle it all. They used to do the compensation, the benefits, the employee relations, and they recruited. And at a certain point, the labor force started growing, companies started growing, and it became its own little animal. So recruiters actually started reporting to HR, because our job is to go out and, back in the day, we were called hunters. Now we're relationship builders, because we're not just courting somebody for a job. We're trying to build a relationship, because at the end of the day, you're making a good living, but you're impacting somebody's life.
Sure.
Right? You're going to poach them from a place of work, sell them this magical job, get them an interview. Of course, they have to make their own decision, but you have disrupted their lifestyle with this great opportunity.
100%.
So there has to be a little bit of passion in what you do. And yes, there's a paycheck at the end, but it's not always, rosy.
Yeah. And I would actually say probably
sometimes you do have to cut your own grass. You can't just, hire somebody out for that. But
I have seen, I'm sure you have too, Alex, you'll have to tell us your stories, but I have seen probably the recruiters who don't survive this business or make a bad name for themselves are the ones that are really only in it for the money or in it for the commissions, who will sell a candidate into a position or a company that has a bad reputation. They'll sell, put rosy colored glasses on for the candidate. That recruiter, yeah, that's a short-term gain for that recruiter, but probably a bad, especially now at the internet age with, you've got websites out there. We use one at our company called Great Recruiters, which is kind of a Yelp for recruiters. Mm-hmm. You will very quickly get a bad name for yourself or for your company. What you just said, the better approach is, and we actually stole this tagline from a marketing company that we use at our company called, "We make great things happen for other people." Because I truly believe that is what we're here for. Do we get paid a nice commission? Side note for the audience, I work for an agency. Alex has worked for agencies in the past, but most of his career has been spent internal, working for some great companies. He can get into that later. But, we're not here to sell the dream. We're here to give, facts,
right?
We'll and hopefully if there is any negative feedback or any thing that the candidate should be concerned about, we'll address it. We'll talk to our team at the client, your hiring managers about it. But again, in this day and age, any candidate can go on Glassdoor and look up, is ABC a great company to work for? Regardless of the recruiter calling, if you have a bad name out there, regardless of who the recruiter is, you're probably not, going to work there. But again, to borrow that tagline again, we as recruiters make great things happen for other people, whether that's the candidate,
right,
finding them a great opportunity that, pays them more, or is in an industry they wanted, or gets them the promotion they wanted, or gets them closer to their home, or gets them, especially nowadays, gets them a remote position versus going to the office 5 days a week. So there's that side. And then the great thing for other people, for an outside agency like myself, is we're making great things happen for that company as well. We're helping that company identify the talent,
the exceptional talent,
the talent that's going to help them, reach the next, quarter's profits, or grow and open a new location, or be able to offer better benefits and so on.
Mm-hmm. Or better their team. I mean, right now, the way candidates look for work is they apply to an ATS system, right? When we grew up in this industry, there was no ATS system. You did not find a job unless you got applied to an ad, right? Or picked up the phone and talked to a recruiter. So nowadays, it's actually an advantage to talk to a recruiter. If they're calling you, you should pick up the phone. You should reply to their email. Because if you're looking for work and you're applying into the ATS system, you have to pray and hope that the recruiter on the other line that's running that requisition, we call it a rec in our industry, right, is actually experienced enough to find your greatness, right? And that's, I think, the gift that recruiters have is we look at hundreds of resumes every day. It's so easy to weed people out. The gift is to get you in the door and talking to the manager.
Right.
So to your point earlier, it's a good living, but so is any other job, right? If you're in it to make 100, 200 grand a year, you are going to fail miserably if you don't love what you do.
For sure.
Cause you're going to have days and weeks when you get no response.
Right.
Right. And that one's going to make your day. But as you pointed out earlier, I think there's a niche for everybody.
Yep.
Just don't do it for the money.
Right.
And I've seen other YouTube videos and podcasts, become $1 million recruiter. That's absolutely great. But there's a lot of work that goes into I've been trying for a few years to become $1 million recruiter. It is so hard. Yeah. Right. I mean, you run a company.
Right.
Right. I mean, how was your last year's $1 million check? No.
Still waiting.
Yeah. Right. But you show up every morning to work. You have fun. You've hired a wonderful staff that you've handpicked, that you're now grooming.
Right.
And I think that's the point of this particular podcast is we want to leave a legacy behind on how to do it right.
Right.
Right. Because you can go get a job at any staffing agency right now. They'll give you a checklist of things to do. You're going to become a robot. And if you follow their script and you follow the number of calls, you're going to make your hires.
Right.
And that's a great way to start. And you may actually love doing that. But if you're truly trying to make an impact, and do it right and provide for your family, I think we're going to make a really good footprint here on how to do it right. And then provide you different avenues. You can go work inside corporate America and become a recruiter. You can go on your own potentially. You can come work for an agency. You can come work for a consulting company like you.
Yep.
So there's just so many different options that are available.
Yeah, I think there's
just do it right.
Absolutely. Do it right, and you'll have a long career and be well respected. You may not be well known. You may not have a YouTube channel. You may not have a podcast, but you'll be well respected. I had a company I worked for a few years ago, and I remember when I joined, I took over a team of recruiters, and I had made the comment to them, and that was actually, pat myself on the back, I was a little ahead of the curve as far as like branding and marketing, which seems to be that's what is driving a lot of recruitment, tools and recruitment marketing, getting your brand out in LinkedIn, so on. But I had mentioned to our team, I'm like, you are an individual brand. Like, you work for this company.
Yep.
But truly the candidate will remember Susie Smith and how she treated you, 3 years ago. You can't treat somebody poorly today and expect to call that person. You can't ghost them, treat them poorly, whatever the thing might be, and then expect to call that person 3 years from now, 5 years from now for a job or a referral. And look, people that are entry level today will be directors and managers 10 years from now. And again, on my side of the business, on the staffing side, now they're a hiring manager somewhere. If you as the individual didn't treat that person well and handle the process properly and do it right, like we're going to hopefully instruct you over, this series of podcasts, you're not going to get very far in this business. You'll get a bad name. You'd be surprised at how small the world is. That, I have friends who are like, hey, do you know this person from that company? And there's a lot of backdoor reference checking, and people ask you, hey, people call me and say, hey, I heard good things about you from, this person, that person, but it can go the other way as well. You can get a bad reputation, a bad name. And certainly there are, Alex and I as recruiters see the articles of, if you go to Google right now and put in recruiters are, and just see what comes up, recruiters are lazy, recruiters are slimy, recruiters are, so there are definitely, some folks that either aren't doing it right, or on the flip side, folks who just aren't having a good experience or don't understand what it is, what our value is in the process. And like you said, Alex, applicant tracking systems do serve a purpose. We all have one, but they also, as a candidate, you could be going into a black hole that if you don't have the 5 right keywords that the computer, the algorithm searches, you're not coming up. I saw a post the other day. Someone said, I've sent out 200 resumes. I haven't got a single call. 200 resumes probably went into a system, right, got looked at by an algorithm. I can guarantee you, I will bet my career that if you sent your resume to 200 recruiters, 200 people,
they will each open up your email.
They will definitely open up your email. They will review your resume. Maybe you won't get, 100 responses because they're looking for this and you have that, but you'll get more than 0 out of 200 for sure.
I touch every resume that comes across my desk. Now, either you get a 30-second review or a 3.5-minute review. Right? Sometimes I have to go up and down and down and up because I'm just not getting it. And I'm like, what am I missing? Sometimes it's pretty apparent that a person submitted a resume for a job that they were hoping to get. They're just not qualified. And me as a professional recruiter, I can't submit them because that shows my client that I'm supporting, right? That I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
But I want to come back to something that you said about building relationships. So I, to this day, this is my 33rd year, still talk to people that I recruited year one out of, in this field.
Sure.
I'll tell a good story. So I ran into Jim Veselopoulos.
Sure.
That's how Noel and I met. We both worked for a consulting company. We'll remain nameless for now, where we worked together, and they had a hard time filling a job. So comes in Alex, and of course I hit my network, and a good friend of mine, Bob Anderson, who you also know, referred Jimmy V to me. Jimmy came in and interviewed. He was probably the toughest close I ever had, because if you know Jim, you got to love about him. He's very direct to the point, and he's short with his point. He doesn't go linger on and on and on and on. We'll probably very direct to a good point, right? That's what I loved about him. So fast forward, he gets the job. He starts working there. And as you know the story, 2 weeks later, I wound up leaving for other reasons. So fast forward a couple of years ago, post-COVID, we were at Bob Anderson's, his oldest daughter get married.
Okay.
And I was there for the first time. Jim meets my wife. And in front of her, he pays me the highest compliment. right in front of her says, "Hey, I just want you to know how Alex impacted my life and my family's life by introducing me to that opportunity," which he went on to grow, became a partner. It was very successful because Jim only knows one way, and that's become successful. He's actually now become a coach for sales folks, does really well for himself. But my point is, that is why I do what I do.
Right.
To get an email from a candidate saying, "You just changed my life. Thank you. I would have never gotten this job, Alex, unless you called and found something special in me." Because the other trick to doing this for a living is that it's easy to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Noel, I have a great opportunity for you. Come work for my customer." But then when you find the greatness in this candidate, you have to sell that candidate to your client. And when I say by client, you can have an external client, or right now I'm working in-house as a contractor and I am providing talent to my customer.
Right.
Okay. And so I have to see the value and then show them the value, because sometimes the resume just doesn't speak value. So by doing a full thorough screen and getting to know the candidate really well about them, you can present them to the candidate. So you're providing a double value.
Right.
It's not just schlepping resumes across the board and waiting for a paycheck. You got to please both sides. So my note to everybody who is listening is put some passion in it, and you're going to be so successful, because you will be at an event where your hire walks up to you and tells you that you made a difference in their life and their family's life. And that's just, I don't know. It's just magical. And we've both done really well for ourselves. We've had great years. We've had slow years. We've worked for some really progressive companies, and that's a story I'll never forget.
Right.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, I can't remember the last time I had, like a sporting event. Yeah, I went to many of those in the roles we're always entertaining people, but okay, great. The Bulls won or the Hawks won, or I had a couple of beers with other colleagues, but that's one story I won't forget. And there's many of those.
So Jim, who, my business partner, these new recruiters that we have working for us, he tells these stories all the time to, again, reinforce with our newer recruiters, our new team, how you can impact people's lives. He tells the story of a client that we have up in Niles. And if you know who they are, the microphone maker. So we had found this gentleman who was working for a different company, and sure had a need for his skill set. And he was vastly underpaid. Again, the offer we were able to negotiate for him was not out of line with what Shure needed or out of line with what the market was willing to pay.
Yeah.
But this person had been internal at his current company for so long that he didn't know any better. Mm-hmm. And to this day, he thanks Jim, sends him a card, sends him an email. "Jim, you changed my life." Did we really do anything, super, super heroic? Maybe not, but he was going to stay at his job and continue to make what he made. Shure was going to continue to have a role unfilled, that they needed this person's expertise. And we put the two together. He is super happy. The client's super happy. He's still there today. All parties are happy. You said an interesting point, which was, there are two sides to this, which is that, the client also needs to be happy. And with, again, going back to picking on applicant tracking systems, and we have one, everybody uses one in staffing and recruiting, and listener, you're going to have one as well. But, when a candidate throws their resume in there, what gets lost is all the other stuff, all the intangibles, the communication skills, the experience that the candidate didn't put on the resume, the one little blurb that would have got them the job, but you as their advocate are able to highlight that to the client. We tell it, I tell the story, or I tell the message to our candidates all the time. I'm your advocate. Do I get paid by my client? Absolutely. I get paid by my client.
I call myself an ambassador.
Right. Advocate, ambassador. I'm like, look, I'm not going to, fib. I'm not going to tell you anything false. I'm not going to tell the client anything false. But the reality is the client needs XYZ, and we can't just leave it to a paper product, a resume or a PDF or a Microsoft Word and a computer algorithm that's reading it. That's why, there's lots of negative articles out there. Recruiters will get replaced by AI, and recruiters. Yeah, I've been hearing that my whole career. Recruiters are going to get replaced by monster.com, and then recruiters are going to get replaced by LinkedIn, and then recruiters are like, that's false. Like I provide this book to our recruiters that says it has this guy did his research. I forget what his name. He's a British guy. Recruiting started like back in like medieval Greco-Roman Spartan days. I mean, people had to convince people to join the army and go off to war and go off to, there was no conscription back then, or there was no voluntary military like there is in the United States. They had to convince people, come join our military, and for that you will get XYZ for your family and for yourself. So recruiting's been happening a long time. It will continue to happen. But again, if we can highlight the value of that candidate to that client, they get an audience. I sometimes in my head, I'm going to give away a marketing idea that someone's going to steal on the podcast, but I always picture, like, if I ever had a commercial for our company and what we do is there's a long line waiting outside a nightclub and the perfect person needs to get in the nightclub. As a recruiter, and the line being the applicant tracking system, I can grab that person, walk them to the front of the line, introduce them to the hiring manager, and say, I don't know about these other resumes you have,
right?
But this is a person I talk to and I can vouch for, and they are the person you are looking for. You should let them into the nightclub, or at least talk to them and let them into the nightclub.
Well, and the flip side to that is if you don't get a chance to know your client, right? Like, for example, we don't have to mention the clients, but there are certain clients that I've had discussion with. I just did not have a good feeling for their business model. And I couldn't consciously go out and recruit for them. That doesn't make them bad. It's just not something that I could have put my name on. And it doesn't happen every day. If I can count on one hand how many times it has happened, it's been far and few between.
Sure.
But the flip side to this job is listening to the customer so that you're just not another recruiter and schlepping resumes. When I submit a resume to my managers, I tell them right from the bat, I'm not a volume recruiter.
Right.
If you want 10 resumes, I'll send them to you, but I will not put my name on them. I'm only doing because you've told me to.
Right.
So if I'm sending you a resume, it is in your best interest to talk to this person. They may not be the person that you're going to hire, but I promise you will not come back to me and say, Alex, what were you thinking? Right. And so that's the thing that I believe in. When I'm sending something that has my signature from Alex Lebelski, talk to this individual, get to know them, because that then, well, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but that then helps me fine tune my search. Right?
Sure,
I get to know somebody. So it's a double-edged side of why this is so much fun. I get to talk to two different people every single day, my client and a candidate that I met that I would have never otherwise known.
Right.
So.
Well, it's interesting. So you and I we haven't worked together as peers.
Well, we did, but then you quit.
My point was, we haven't worked together as peers in quite a long time, right. But our messages are very similar. And we didn't plan this audience, but right. I tell my recruiters, we tell our clients, who again, we're an external firm, that our mantra or our value is quality over quantity. You can deal with mega staffing firm that makes $10 billion a year. And look, I wish I'd made $10 billion a year, but $10 billion a year. And they have a team in Chicago of 100 recruiters. Look, I'd love to be that someday.
Parking lot full of Lexuses, BMWs, Mercedes.
Absolutely. Aspirational. Yep. But the reality is, and I tell my clients this, you're not going to get 10 unqualified resumes from me, from no disparaging whoever might be listening, who this mold fits. Maybe that's why you're listening to this podcast.
Right.
But it's not a history major who got a job at Mega Staff,
right,
who's sending over 10 resumes that they don't even know how to read because they only have 3 months of experience. I actually tell clients, I'm going to send you a gold medalist and a silver medalist. Right. You're going to hire one and you'll want to hire the other. And that's our value. You don't have to dig through 10 resumes to figure out who's the right fit. I'm going to find you the right fit. And maybe I'm, like you said, Alex, maybe I'm off a little bit. Maybe you need to recalibrate and, zone in the target, but I'm not going to be embarrassed by who I presented because I've done my homework and I know what you're looking for. Okay.
So let me play devil's advocate.
Sure.
Well, maybe no, that's not why you're a $10 billion company. Because we
that's okay. Go on.
Right. Okay. Good.
That's okay.
Right. Because we all know, and there are probably experienced recruiters listening to this podcast. I'm curious. You can learn something new, or maybe not, who are saying, well, it's a numbers game. Send 10 resumes. They're bound to make a hire. The statistics show that, and et cetera, et cetera. And that may work for you if you're working for a $10 billion company. If you're working for a smaller company, or if you're a contract recruiter, professional recruiter like I am, I try to call myself professional recruiter instead of contract. My submittals are very important because I don't want my manager to come back and say, gosh, Alex is just sending us 10 resumes. We don't need somebody at his level.
For sure.
Let's bring somebody else in here and we'll pay less. We'll still get the same 10 resumes that I'll have to review. What's his value? Right. So the question is, if you're going to go into this business for the right way, and more importantly, longevity. Let's talk about that for a moment. This is my 33rd year. Right. And I know I mentioned that, not bragging, but I'm kind of proud of it, right? Because I'm becoming that guy, right? That's been doing this for a long time.
What's funny is we have lots of friends
who've been doing it for over 40 years.
But yeah,
50 years.
A long time. And they're still doing a good job. They're still highly respected. Companies still want to hire. You know, there's this stigma of, and I don't know if it rears its ugly head in IT or recruiting as much, but you're getting too old, right? What discrimination, age discrimination. Listen, if you can recruit, you can recruit. If you can code, you can code.
One of my closest friends is in his 70s.
Right.
And he still works as many hours a day as he wants.
Right.
Because he's like, I'm still having fun. Money's great.
Right.
But I'm filling my day. I'm talking to people. I just met you, Alex, for the first time. We're now new friends and acquaintances. And
truth be told, nobody knows that, listener, if you're going to get into recruiting and you're going to have a long career, no one will ever know how old you are. Let's be honest. Alex keeps saying how many years he has. I have plenty of years. But the truth is, we had a friend, Rebecca, a mutual friend of ours, who at one point was traveling in the United States in an RV with her dog, and she had a 312 phone number, and she had the internet, and she
was ahead of the whole COVID work remote thing.
Who would know or care where she was, how old she was?
Yep.
If you could send out an email, pick up a phone, make the connections, make the network. Look, I'm not maybe naive enough to think that my voice won't change by the time I'm 80, but the reality is, no one will care that I'm 80 versus how old I am now. If you're providing value, for sure. Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of the point I was trying to make earlier is, in my entire career, I have been without a job, basically not working, for 4 weeks, not by choice.
Kudos. That's fantastic.
So my very first contract was in 1996 with Whitman Hart. I worked for what I think is the greatest manager that was ever in recruiting that I've met.
Jim Slattery. Jim, I know Jim.
No longer with us, unfortunately. And one of the things he always said to his whole team is, whatever you guys do, I don't care what it is. Just always make me look good.
Right.
And I've lived by that my entire life. But what happened was, I started there early in the year, and then right around Thanksgiving, they were going public and they were trying to hire people full time, shave some costs. He offered me a full-time job, but I was kind of riding the roller coaster of being a contractor, making a decent living. I mean, 1996, I was making, I don't know, like $60 an hour. It's great money.
Sure.
My wife and I at the time working downtown, we're living in the city. It was great. I'm like, yeah, Jim, I'm not going to take this offer. I'm going to go contract. It's kind of offered me flexibility. And the reason I contracted, pause for a moment of the full story, is that besides the money, and we have friends who've always chased a contractor money, I always thought it would give me the best opportunity to go work in all of these great companies. So if you look at my portfolio of where I work, Sybase, Accenture, Oracle, PeopleSoft, Arthur Andersen, I've supported such great big companies. It helped me understand the mechanics of how corporate America thinks, right? Sure. Which also helped me be a little bit somewhat successful on the consulting side. But I had a colleague who worked a little harder than me. We all know who it is. Shameless plug, Beth Anderson. But my point is that because I focus on quality, right, I have managed to work when I wanted to work for all of these 33 years, other than those 4 weeks.
Right.
Because what happened was, when I didn't accept Jim's offer, he says, hey, I'm sorry, I got to let you go. And I was cut in the middle of the busy season. It was like December, January, when nobody's hiring.
Right.
So I stayed home, applied to some ads. Sure enough, when New Year ended, boom, I was back working, and I haven't looked back since. And so that's the key here, is if you're good at what you do, you can always be working. Now, you may not be making the figures plus, but you could always be working.
Right.
And that's what's always been important to me is I know that as a professional recruiter, I can always keep the lights on at home. And by the way, I've been working mostly remote since 2006. Let's not even talk about that. That was
way before
remote
COVID.
was remote. And the reason I was remote is because the companies I worked for didn't want to spend money on providing office space for their recruiters. It's expensive for you as we sit in your office here. Those desks are not cheap, right? Every office is an overhead.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to leave everybody with this message is that if you love talking to people and you get at what you do, you will make a pretty good living. I would not be surprised, Noel, correct me if I'm wrong. If you partner up with the right company, you could easily make 50, 60 grand your first year knowing nothing.
If you're asking me, that's like the base salaries now.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying.
You could do that if you're a terrible recruiter.
Well, no, but you wouldn't keep a terrible recruiter.
No, you wouldn't keep a terrible recruiter. Right.
To your point, for example, so right now we're kind of in some really interesting times.
Yeah.
You have recruiters on your payroll that you're paying a base salary, and because things may be a little bit slower, they're not making their commissions, but you're not necessarily going to go lay them off because
no way. Right.
Correct.
Right.
And so my point is that you can still provide for your family. You're showing up to work. You're working hard. You're providing value to your customer. You're providing value to you, Noel, and your company.
Right.
But things are just moving a little slower. Guess what? The lights are still on at home.
For sure.
Well,
so let me ask you this. So, you talk about longevity. You've been doing this 33 years. Most people think, oh, you've been doing something 33 years, age discrimination, all this kind of stuff. Just recently, you were out looking for a new engagement. You had like 4 different offers, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Yep. And I had my choice.
Right.
And
you're still highly sought after, years later because they need that expertise. Could they hire, again, no disparaging to you, listener, because that's why you're here, but hiring a kid with not much experience versus hiring a superstar like yourself, you have plenty of options, plenty of offers out there.
Yeah. And that's because their volume is high. They need somebody to come in and within a reasonably short amount of time. And listen, sometimes my ramp up time is longer. I can be doing this and I could think of myself as the greatest recruiter in the world, which I don't think I am. I strive to be that person. I think after all these years, I'm always learning something new every day. You know me really well, probably better than most of the people I know, is that I'm not too proud to admit when I don't know something, but I will sure call somebody who knows something more than I do. You and I have exchanged ideas often, very often. And that's the key is that here we are, knowing each other for 20 years now, still exchanging ideas. And we're at the height of our game, right? You're running a company. I'm running my own company. I'm servicing customers, but there's always that little pep talk that I need, right? There's never a shortage of that. Yeah. So it was actually a great feeling. Now, granted, the market was going a little bit crazy. Everybody's looking for recruiters, but I feel I have an advantage because I've seen so much and experienced so much. I may not get you 30 hires a month that you want, but I can guarantee you the 25 hires that we get are going to be quality. And more importantly, your business will never complain because they're always taken care of. And we could talk about that at a different podcast, but there's an element of this job that if you're not taking care of your customers, right, in your line of work, right, when you get a job order and you're trying to fill it, if you're not calling your customer once a week and saying, hey, we got nothing for you because we didn't want to submit Johnny, Joey, and Susie for these reasons, you have just built so much value for them that is irreplaceable, right? You just can't replace that value. Hey, we got nothing for you this week because we just did not feel comfortable submitting these people. I'll still send them to you so you can see that we did some work, but I don't think it would be worth your while. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Right? It's like,
absolutely.
Geez, no, thank you.
Right.
So anyways, there's just 2 sides to this. And I tell this to people. This happened to me recently, maybe in the last 5-7 years. I cannot wait to get to work every day. I can't.
So Alex, I laugh because I ran, it was a total like farcical poll that I ran on LinkedIn, right? So some marketing person had said, you got to run polls on LinkedIn. That's the new thing. That's the way to engage with your audience, right?
I answered.
Yeah. So I put a post out there. What's your favorite day of the week? It could have been, what's your favorite ice cream?
Right.
I put, what's your favorite day of the week?
Right.
So my team here is like, they're debating it. They're like, well, my favorite day is, whatever, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, blah, blah, blah. I go, my favorite day is Monday. And they go, not a single person chose Monday. And I'm obviously not going to answer my own poll.
Right.
But they're like, Monday? Your favorite day is Monday?
I can answer it for you.
And I'm like, yeah, my favorite day is Monday. Like, I'm okay. Look, and this has nothing to do with being the owner of this particular company, but just in recruiting, I enjoy this profession. I've been doing it, again, 20 some, almost, not as long as you, but 25, 26 years, whatever the math might come out to. I love it. Like, I'm always learning.
You're mentoring
in IT. You're always learning. There's always a new technology. Like, listen, and anybody on the podcast listening, there was no such thing as DevOps 6 years ago. There was no such thing as cloud services 10 years ago. I mean,
full stack engineer.
There's no such thing as full stack engineer.
There was no such thing as a talent advisor.
There were a million things that didn't exist a year ago, 2 years ago in IT. So you're always learning that side of it.
Right.
And then on the recruiting side itself, there's always something to learn. There's always a new tool, a chat bot, an AI. Alex and I have been trading Boolean search strings for 20 years. There's new techniques. There's new places. How do you search GitHub? How do you search Stack Overflow? How do you search the World Wide Web? People no longer on, LinkedIn. There's always something to learn.
Facebook, great hunting.
Yeah. How do you search Facebook? How do you search? There's people, I don't know how to do it yet. I'll have to figure it out. They're doing recruiting off Twitter and TikTok or engagement on TikTok. Get way beyond me at this point.
You can learn how to recruit on those sites by calling More Essentials.
But the point is, I like Monday. I like getting back to work. I like this industry. I like this profession. And hopefully, listener, if you enjoy it too, you'll be with us for the journey and figure out what made myself, Alex, and future guests that we're going to have on the podcast titans of industry from not only recruiting, but from technology, from other industries. We're going to have lots of
leadership to tell you why they want good recruiters.
Absolutely.
Supporting them.
We'll have the other side of the desk. Like Alex said, we'll have managers giving their view of what makes a good recruiter. And
we'll have applicants giving their version of a good recruiter.
We're never going to have an app. No, I'm kidding. Well, I'm kidding. Look, there are multiple inputs to what makes a good recruiter. And to, in the spirit of be a better recruiter, that's what we're looking to do with this podcast. Any closing remarks, Alex, before we sign off?
Oh my God.
Go ahead.
Stop it. I was just going to say that.
You were going to say what? Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm like, let's wrap this up because we promised our listeners that we were going to keep this short and to the point, but we're so passionate about this. I don't have any closing comments other than I am so excited to be part of this, Noel.
Yep.
I know you have a wide circle of friends. And I appreciate you asking me. I'm sure the other 20 said no, but thank you for putting me on the number 21.
Number 23.
23. I was 23. Okay. But no, this is super exciting because I know you and I have talked about this for a long time. We feel that as we enter a point in our life, and I know we can recruit till 60 or 70, we want to leave a legacy that's not what we think recruiting is all about. That stigma needs to go away. Yes, we all have a lot of work to do on how to follow up better and how to respond better. And so this is what this is all about. But I think I'd like to exit by giving a quick intro of my background, how I started.
Go ahead. You give us a brief overview and we'll cover that in future podcasts.
You know what? I think if I did that now, people won't tune in next time. So
Alex is putting a hook in the water.
I'm going to put a hook in the water, but I'm just so grateful that I'm here because I think I finally have a voice that I know you've heard me say before. I feel by being a recruiter, we don't always have a voice. And now we have a voice that we're going to stamp, listen to it or not, but I think you'd miss a lot if you don't. So thank you for joining today. And I'm so tickled to be here.
I'm so excited to be doing this. I will tell you, I have been very reluctant to, put a spotlight on myself or us, what we're about to journey, have a journey about.
Right.
But I've had enough people say, look, you've got a wealth of knowledge, things you've accomplished, things that you've done.
People we know.
You are a good manager. You are a good mentor. You are a good trainer. You are like, let's spread the word. Let's put that out in the world.
Yeah.
I have, and I don't want to make this too long of a comment, but, I see lots of articles being written and people getting speaking engagements and all these sorts of things. I've never written an article. I've never had a speaking engagement. And it's always been this reluctance to like, who am I to tell other people how to do this or what to do? But on the flip side, maybe I do have something to offer. So why not put it out there? We'll do it in a podcast format for now, but maybe later on it turns into something else. But let's help that next generation of recruiters who are just getting into the business, or people that are listening who are thinking about getting into the business.
Yep.
Like, my next door neighbor said something about being a recruiter. What's that all about? Let me go find a podcast about that. Here we are. Hint, hint. And let's take them through the steps of how to be a better recruiter. So Alex, thanks for taking the time to jump on this with me, and look forward to many more.
I can't wait.
All right. We're signing off. Have a good night and see y'all later. Bye.